Congo is second largest country on the continent. It's been called by the UN the rape epicenter of the world. And you really can't fathom the magnitude of trauma. It's all really for the last 25 plus years. They've known is civil war and anarchy. There's not a civil war now currently, but in the East, there's just constant militia attacks. So that's all they know. And that's what draws me there is the needs are just some of the greatest in the world. And we have met some of God's most precious, chosen, faithful servants. And I will crawl on my hands and knees to get there to serve them. They mean that much to me and to Celeste, and they know that. They know that. So, yeah,
Wow.
We've seen God just do a truly, truly miraculous, no human explanation for what we've seen. The darker it is, the more the light shines. And wow, you see the full vintage, both of what Satan tries to do by way of destruction. Probably 90% of what I see and hear there, I don't share here. It wouldn't even be appropriate.
It's really horrible. It is beyond,
it's
horrible.
Yeah, the torture rapes, the cannibalizations, the whole 9 yards. But at the same time, in that place of just outlandish evil and suffering, God is at work in amazing ways. And we train people and they just run with it. They're so hungry. That really inspires us to pray, to be faithful ourselves in our own context. So while it's hard and painful, we come back just with a renewed sense of the power of God to heal the worst of the worst. I am not afraid of any kind of story now. They can still traumatize me, but when you've seen what God can do in the worst of the worst, it really helps take away the maybe reticence to walk into hard places, because you realize, what it says here about the power of God, that is true, and I've seen it. There is nothing too difficult for God.
I would love for you to tell that story that you put in the newsletter.
Yeah, I'll try to get through it.
Oh.
We'd done a couple weeks of training. They said, we want to take you, I think it was a Saturday, to this ministry to abuse survivors. Turned out they had no outside visitors in 10 years. I mean, including Congolese visitors.
Wow.
And it was a little ministry of the mentally ill, run by a woman named Mama Abia, with just incredible faith and boldness for Christ. Vast majority of whom were mentally ill because of trauma. The rebels, they had a few psychopharmaceutical medicines, and the rebels would routinely come and steal everything they could and threaten them. And she just stayed, literally putting her life on the line for these wounded people. Young woman named Abia couldn't talk. She was catatonic, had been raped by a soldier or soldiers, and her family had rejected her because of the shame. And that was very cultural. And she'd gotten to a point where she couldn't care for herself. She was failing to thrive, couldn't even feed herself. And she couldn't communicate whatsoever. And it was so painful seeing her and hearing her story. She didn't really know we were even in the room. Someone took a picture and we prayed for her the following year. And I can't begin to count the tears I shed. Went back a year later, because we make long-term commitments to our partners. Someone had the picture because it was that important to us to pray for this woman. And we showed her the picture, and through the translator asked how that young woman was doing. And she literally began to jump up and down. Mama Bia's was incredibly zealous and joyful. And she said in Swahili that's Nema, which I now know means grace. And we asked how she was doing, and she told us this incredible story of healing several months after we'd left. Said she was doing so well and been able to go home. And so I think it was 2 days later, here's Mama Bia with this young woman, and we didn't recognize her. We literally thought she was a middle-aged woman, and turned out she was about 21.
Wow.
I have a before and after picture, and we actually have it in our By His Wounds Africa curriculum, and you're just looking at a miracle. I mean,
Yes.
you're looking at a miracle. And again, those are the scenarios where I say the worst of the worst is not beyond the power of God.